but we have been hearing about Tottenham's style of play for the year ahead. This is Ange Postecoglou saying, as managers, particularly in the initial period, we have a fair bit of power and influence to say, well, we'll do this my way. And for the most part, players will do that. But then that wears off because eventually they'll want to see some fruits of their labour. Now, obviously, we look at last season, Don, and we see that first half, everything got so exciting. Second half definitely wasn't the same. How far into this season are you going to decide whether we're seeing a season where they're going to have success or not?
3 or 4 games, because I want to know if Postecoglou is not going to be naive as he was last season. I go back to the Chelsea game, crazy game. But then teams start to work Tottenham out. I remember they went to St James's Park and they played with these 2 inverted fullbacks who went central, left the 2 centre-halves completely exposed. And Newcastle and Eddie Howe had done all the research. They played Harvey Barnes on one side, Anthony Gordon on the other side, and Isak through the middle. And they got in behind every 5 minutes. And I'm pretty sure, I'm not sure what were the games afterwards, but Arsenal more or less copied the style. City more or less copied that style. And everyone was working out the way Tottenham were trying to play. So you can't be naive as you were probably at Celtic when you can play whatever style you want because you've got good players, you've got the best players and you win the league. You try and do that against the Liverpools of this world and the Aston Villas of this world and the Man Cities and the Man Uniteds and the Chelseas and the good sides like Newcastle's as well, who's going to have quality players up against you. And I just thought his tactics were so obvious right from the off. If you ask a doggy to play in the inverted position in Pedro Porro, it looks great when they go forward and they score good goals and they score 4 goals and they win 4-3. But you just know on the counter they could get done at any given time. So I want to see, even though he's leaving a little bit on the players there to do a little bit more, I want to see him do a little bit more. I want to see him being a little bit more harder to beat against the big sides away from home. Even that press conference where we heard this quote from Ian, he was very jovial and happy and very bouncy at the start of it. Oh, yeah. But then he did get a little bit more dour towards the end of it, a little bit like Spurs' season last year. I suppose he has to be realistic as well, right?
Yeah, well, they started, you might remember, with 26 points out of 30 last season, top of the table. But just as Don and Shaka were describing, they kind of ran out of gas and teams started to work them out. Some of their games, to me, look like basketball matches at times, end to end, a bit crazy, a bit mad. It's going to have to be something a little more steady, and I think they're going to have to need more versatility in terms of tactics this year. Some interesting stories circulating about Tottenham that they might be in for Dominic Solanke, who got 19 Premier League goals for Bournemouth. And I noticed the bookmakers have got them odds on to sign Eberechi Eze, the Crystal Palace and England flair player, playmaker, creator. So those would be interesting signings if they happen. But of course, there's a lot of talk at this time of year. But it's interesting, those bookmakers' odds. I think they've gotten something like 6-4 on to get Eze.
Do you remember the Chelsea game, Kay? And the reason why I thought they were naive in that game is they went down to 10 men. And they lost 2 or 3 players to injury. And it was tragic watching it. But when you've been in the game a long time and you watch your manager's tactics and you really simplify it and you go, if you're down to 10 men, why would you ask your back 4, I think they played on the day, why would you ask them to defend on the halfway line against 10 men and 2 or 3 players injured? That was the excuse. So Chelsea were the type of side who were in terrible form. Tottenham made it very easy for them, and Chelsea ran offside about 1 million times, and all they needed was to be a little bit patient. They got their goals in the end. But if you're Tottenham, and I was watching it thinking, why wouldn't you just ask the centre-backs on the day? It was Eric Dyer and another, I can't think who it was. Why wouldn't you ask them to defend on the edge of their box, being in a low block? Chelsea would never, ever have scored. So why would you ask 10 men to play on the halfway line? That's when I thought his tactics were naive.
I'm a little bit less critical of Spurs and Pochettino during
I feel like the fans loved that, didn't they?
They didn't love it when they were getting beat.
For me,
worked them out.
For me, Spurs fans would know a whole lot better. Spurs had been a hard watch for a few years now, for far too long. And then all of a sudden, Pochettino comes and is this breath of fresh air and is trying to establish... Postecoglou. What did I say, Pochettino? Postecoglou. Is trying to establish a style of play about Spurs, one that he wanted to be the foundation of their successes. And I feel that leans into, well, what's to come from him. And while I agree with Don in that this season is a big one for Postecoglou because he's established who they are, they know what they do, the players know what they're doing at the best of times. Now they and he has to be able to adjust when things aren't going their way. Had Spurs just been 5th all season, last season, I don't think we'd have been as critical of Postecoglou as we are. But as Ian pointed out, they get off to this start last season where they are just blowing people out of the water and just running them off the park. And then there's this feeling about Spurs and who they are. And then all of a sudden, the little bit of regression. And let's be honest, I don't think pre-season anybody had Spurs finishing in the top 5. So all in all, I think it was a hugely successful season, especially given the fact that Harry Kane left. But it just felt a little flat towards the end because of that start.
Yeah, I wasn't sort of knocking him, even though I said naive, and I stand by that. You have to say, when they were playing under Conte and Jose Mourinho, as Shaka said, they were a dire watch.
Painful.
It was painful. God. So the Tottenham fans...
Sounds like you hate him to me.
No, when the Tottenham fans were seeing the football, they were going, this is what we're about. And it was magic. It was amazing.